Hello, hello everyone. Thank you so much for helping. My name is Ransom Nima. Um, I'm a fourth year radiography student in Nigeria, and apart from my studies, I'm also a proficient freelance medical writer. And yeah, I write a lot of articles, a lot of medical blog content for a couple of clients and companies I've worked with. So today I have an amazing guest speaker. Mm. All the way from the UK. Hey, Katrina, could you introduce yourself to the audience?
Hello, I'm Caitriona McBride. I've been a content and copywriter for 11 years now. I'm originally from Ireland, but yes, based in the UK, based in Manchester, but I've lived in 5 different countries. So I've been around a little bit, and I write mostly for hotels and resorts, the hospitality industry, but I've written for companies in the automotive industry, legal, banking. So you name it, I've probably written an article about it.
Thank you for introducing yourself, Katrina. So we got a couple of questions for you. You ready? Mm. All right. So even looking downwards, I'm bringing the questions to Katrina. So even wondering what's ransom looking downwards for. So the first question goes this way. I see you have a lot of experience, in content writing and creative content writing. You have a lot of experience. So tell us what really inspired you to pursue a career in copywriting and creative content writing. So tell us.
I've always written, from writing. My mother will tell you that there's like copybooks full of my writing. I used to write newsletters for my neighborhood. Um, I wrote essays, all of this, but later on I got into sales and marketing, and so I was a salesperson. And obviously, you need copy, and I was passionate about copy, so I started educating myself on sort of sales copy and things like that, so that I could combine, something that I'd always wanted to do with something that actually would pay the bills. And now I get to write every day, so I absolutely love that.
What did you study?
Oh,
During your undergraduate.
I have a Bachelor of Arts. It's actually in theatre. So I studied in Ireland, where I'm from. I studied in a small town called Tralee, and I studied with the National Folk Theatre of Ireland, which is called Shim Satira. Within that degree, we did a lot of things so we did some theatre marketing and business studies, and to help us be more effective. If you're working in theatre, if you're working sort of as a producer or anything like that, obviously the bottom line matters. And I was really interested in the marketing part of it. But I also did singing, dance, acting, directing. So yeah, it was quite a broad degree, and a really good experience. It was amazing to study with the National Folk Theatre of Ireland.
Okay, so did you do your masters in theater arts?
I didn't know. Once I finished my degree, I'd love to do a master's, to be honest. But with the financial commitment as well, and I think it was like I got into the world of working. So initially, I started out in hotels, and then I moved to the United Arab Emirates, and that's where I got into sort of public relations, and then into sales. And I guess it's just been a sort of a journey where I've kept working. And while I've done different courses, I haven't yet got my master's. It's something that I'd love to pursue. I'd love to do a master's, either in communication or English literature at some point. But I feel like now it's going to be more of a passion, like a hobby, rather than towards teaching or anything like that.
Thank you so much for sharing what really inspired you to, pursue a career in copywriting and creative content writing. So before I ask you the second question, you've been to different countries, like you said, right?
Hmm.
So how does those countries you've been to really affect you as a copywriter and as a creative content writer?
Um, Well, I think it's first of all, it's given me more opportunities because when you meet people from different countries and you know, you learn new perspectives, you also have access to more people, and so moving around, and also I think you'll probably understand this as well. Even like so, languages, any language, when you speak their language, even something like how they say "How are you?" It's not always "How are you?" You know, for instance, in Thai, they often ask you, "Have you eaten?" And it's impolite to say no because then they feel like they should feed you. And we have something similar in a part of Ireland that when they say, "How are you?" it's more like, "Have you eaten?" So I think those different perspectives, you understand the things that are important to people, um, anything that you learn at all. Because I was like, you can. I always say that you can't be a writer without reading a lot. When you're meeting people and traveling to other places, you're learning a lot, you know, and when you immerse yourself in that, it informs your perspective. I think you just have a wider perspective, and I hope that I do, you know.
Wait, are you bilingual? Do you speak different language?
I wouldn't say I'm fully bilingual. I learned Irish for a long time. We have to learn Irish in Ireland. I speak a little French, a little German, a reasonable amount of Spanish, and I was learning Thai when I was there. It's easy, I think, to speak Thai, but not easy to read or write.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing that. So that draws me to the second question for you. So can you share a memorable event or a memorable scenario where you got involved in and the creative process behind it? Like what memorable projects you've worked on, since you've been a creative, content writer, and what did you achieve alongside with the project? What was the behind the scenes to make that project a memorable, project or a memorable scenario you've worked on as a writer?
Um, I think one, I mean, there's differences in every project, and I've worked with some lovely people, but in terms of the creative process, and I have to be careful here because I signed an NDA, but a couple of years ago, I worked with an agency, and they were working on a project for a very big multinational company, and I was the copywriter, so we had to um, present sort of a deck to them, and that they could propose their sort of services to another company. So it's quite complex because there's a lot of different parts in this, you know, from coming up with the language to even what the premises would look like, you know, like the decor. And so that was very interesting because sometimes I just receive a brief, you know, a tone of voice and a brief, and I'm writing to that, and that's fine. That's great. That's a lot of my life. Um, but in this scenario, there were so many different creatives in the room, and I think over the course of sort of 2 or 3 hours, we were brainstorming. And I think when you're sitting with other creative people, it's quite empowering, and that I think that was very very memorable because, for instance, maybe you'd have not necessarily a graphic designer, but an interior designer suggesting something, and me saying, "Okay, well, I think that these words would work with that." And so when you're all working together, it's like people adding like different things to the train, you know, and the train's going to keep going, you know what I mean? So, but you can add a blue carriage and a red carriage, and the blue carriage might be filled with corn, and the red one with wheat, and whatever it is. That when all these things come together, it produces a greater outcome.
Mm,
I think
mm.
that was very. I can't say too much about the project, but it was successful, and they did win. You know, they won the business that they wanted to win, and it was really incredible to see what we put together in less than 2 weeks.
Mm.
Working very hard, of course, but you know, the fact that we were all starting from the same place, and working together, not sort of individually. I do think that you can really benefit as part of a team.
Mm, mm, mm. You know, everybody has some bad days, some good days in their various works. So thank you so much for sharing a memorable event, as a copywriter. So, so before I ask you the third question, have you written, have you done some translation from another language to English, something like that? Have you done that before?
No, I think, I'd really like to be proficient enough in Spanish, but I'm not yet, and no, I haven't done any translation. I've worked with people that need translation, but I always ask around. I ask my network, okay, do I know anyone that can speak French or that can speak German or whatever it's needed? I wouldn't be good enough myself.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. So the third question for you goes this way. Now, how do you create text, that really resonate with a wider audience, with your targeted audiences? To tell us, we write and we have in mind our target audience,
Mhm.
right? So, but it doesn't mean that, for instance, on LinkedIn, we have some target audience, right? But it doesn't mean that your content goes directly to your target audience, right? It comes across a lot of people that are outside from your niche and within your niche. So tell us how you create content for a wider audience that resonates with a wider audience alongside with your targeted audience. So tell us.
Um, I think first of all, so are you talking about specifically LinkedIn or if I'm working for a client?
It depends. You can talk about anyone.
Okay, well, with LinkedIn, let's say when I'm talking about myself personally, or if I'm creating something for somebody else, something I think, you know, marketeers and copywriters will talk a lot about personality, and I think, you know, think of that like as personal. So adding in something that's personal to me is going to resound with people much more than if it's generic, and that's why I think we certainly can look at these AI tools now and use them as productivity tools, but they can't replace like a human voice or your individual feelings or experiences or anything like that. So I think on LinkedIn, for me, personal, along with making sure that like I'm sharing expert advice. But I see it whenever I'm a little bit more personal, the engagement goes up, the impressions go up, all of that. So that's what I would say for LinkedIn. When it's for a client, and it can be quite hard, isn't it? You know what I mean? But this is why we talk about companies having a personality. Companies need to be very, very clear about what their personality is. And that's why, we come up with words and sentences that explain the personality of that company. And to always go back to that. So this person is, they cycle to work and they eat falafel for lunch, whatever it is. It's like, so when this brand personality is created, when you create a piece of content, I think it's always worth asking, is this what this person would say? So the what you're trying to sort of create that company tone of voice as, and consistency in that, but also listening to what the customers want. That's the personal in there.
Hmm. Hmm. Wow. Wow. Hmm. That was a nice quick answer to my question. So before I ask you the fourth question, how do you know your target audience?
Research, you know, um, you've got to go out, and I think because I deal with small businesses as well as big businesses a lot, and I think advice is normally more helpful for the small businesses. Look at who is buying from you now, like who your first customers were, and ask them, you know, and that's how you can really build a picture. I think it always goes back to real people, and that's what I would recommend if you're sort of like, oh, what's my target audience? Sometimes it's better to ask the people who've already bought from you, why, and look at people like them. You know what I mean? Because then it's going to be much easier than trying to conjure up who this person is. You know.
Mm, mm, mm. So, thank you so much for sharing that with us, Katrina. That was an amazing nugget you dropped there. So, the fourth question goes this way. You know, there are recent changes and in terms of writing, some latest advancements in today's digital world or age.
Mm.
So how do you keep up with ever changing trends, right, and technologies in today's digital age? So how do you do that? Tell us.
Um, well, I wouldn't say I call myself a Luddite because I'm not. However, I wouldn't say, I'm not as technologically advanced as some writers out there. I generally don't write a lot about tech. And so for me, in terms of sort of tools, sometimes it's a bit old school. I was like, I use Microsoft Words, I use Google Docs, I use Google Sheets, Excel. These products have been around for a long time. But in terms of sort of digital marketing trends, keeping abreast of those, I subscribe to quite a few newsletters. I would say a good portion of my week is reading, researching what's going on, following, like the LinkedIn marketing blog, because they'll normally compile things. HubSpot, I follow things, SEMrush as well. So that would be for SEO. So again, and I know I'm sort of repeating myself here, but like I read a lot. But in terms of the tech that I use in my job, probably not so much. Definitely a later adopter than some people need to be. You know what I mean? Like other people are very savvy with these things.
Mm, mm. So you talked about you subscribe to a few newsletters pertaining your niche.
Yeah.
That's an amazing stuff. That's an amazing stuff to keep up with the ever changing trends in terms of copywriting and creative content writing. Right. Mm. So we have two more questions to go through you, Katrina. You've been an amazing guest speaker, by the way.
Thank you.
So the fifth question for you goes this way. Hmm, the question sounds a little intriguing, but it seems you're ready, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So can you give any advice to writers out there who wants to earn their own living and get into this business you do? So what are your advice for them?
Don't write for free. Nothing comes for free. So find local businesses, first of all, local businesses that need your help. Everybody needs a blog. Everybody needs to be visible now. So, and your locality well. So that's what I would say, like approach local businesses and see if you can write for them first. See if they need some web copy or blogs, whatever, or emails. Sometimes that's, for instance, a lot of businesses, they would be doing specials for maybe Christmas or some other holidays, Hanukkah, whatever the holiday is. And so if you approach them in advance of that and say, well, I'll help you writing them. And then you can build up your own portfolio. So I think that's a good way. The second thing, and this is quite similar to the first thing, is join a networking group. Either online, if you can't find one locally, or do both. Online, because it might give you access to other areas where other people might need your copy. It's always good to build a network. And my network is probably one of the most important things that I have. It helps me recommend people. Somebody today asked me, oh, do you know anybody looking for sales and marketing coordinator job? And I'm like, yes, I do, because of my network. So build up your network, and that's basically how you ensure continuous business, because as long as you write well and do the job that you've told people that you will do, they will refer you. And then it's not just you, and it's not just LinkedIn, it's not just trying to market yourself. Other people will be doing that for you. So those are the two main things I would say to start, and then to be consistent and know that there's always people referring you.
Amazing, amazing. I see you're also an editor, right?
An editor, yes.
Mm, mm, mm. So the last question for you is, as an editor you are, what are the most common mistakes you encounter when writing content, and how can you solve them?
So a lot of the editing that I do, there's two kinds. One would be for academics, so theses, master's dissertations, things like this, and the other would be for writing. It's like writing non-fiction books, fiction books, things like this, papers. I mean, I do think it's a little bit obvious, but typos. A lot of people don't see their own typos. Even myself, I'll post on LinkedIn and I have to correct it 1 second later, because even though I've read it 5 times, there's a typo in there. A lot of times we don't notice our own typos. So a second pair of eyes is always a good thing. In both, so and I would say why you need an editor is continuity. So I see it a lot of times when you're so immersed in your own work, and this goes for, let's say, a fiction writer or somebody writing a thesis, that you don't realize that, because you're trying to get all the information in, but you don't realize that it's actually like lost the flow. And sometimes that paragraph should actually be like 5 paragraphs back, or maybe in another chapter, or maybe the start of a chapter. So it's all about sort of that flow. And I think if you're not practicing this every day, which, let's be honest, when people are writing, well, I mean, obviously, if you're an author for 15 years, you are. But I'd say, everyone needs an editor, even me. I have people that read my work. So, yeah, the typos and continuity, I think, are big issues for most people.
Mm, mm, mm. Wow, that was amazing, Caitriona.
Thank
You
you.
you do a lot of work, and how do you have time for work and your family as well?
It is a good question. So it takes a lot of discipline, I think. Particularly like when we were in COVID lockdowns, it was just very easy for me to work till 11 o'clock at night. And while, for me, that was a healthy coping mechanism, I'm thankful I had work. A lot of people didn't. A lot of people weren't able to work. So I was definitely grateful for it. I've had to really learn a lot of discipline. And so what I try to do now is, I try to do a working week like everybody else. But if I'm on a project, I can often have to work weekends. And I do think that it's a little bit part of freelance life. I don't have children, so I don't have to, work around sort of their schedules or extracurricular activities. But I do have a partner. He has 3 children, so I'm probably going to be learning a lot more about that in the next few years. But yeah, all I would say is discipline and a bit of flexibility. In the summer, I start work earlier because it's brighter, so that means
Hmm.
that I can normally knock off earlier.
Sorry, to get it correctly, did you say you didn't have kids?
I don't have children.
Why? Aren't you married? You're married, right?
No, I'm not married. No.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Whoa. Whoa.
So I have a
Okay.
partner, and he was married, and he has 3 children. But we don't.
Okay, you guys got divorced, right?
Pardon?
You guys got divorced.
No, no, I'm
You
saying I no, I have a partner. We've never been married. He was married and has 3 children with his ex-wife.
okay? All right, all right. So thank you so much, Katrina, for helping on and sharing your narratives and these questions. So before we wrap up the session, what are your last words for the audience?
Ooh. I would say, if you want to write, find somebody, find a mentor, ask questions of people who are established, like we're doing now. Always be willing to learn.
Amazing. So we come to the end of the session. If you love this content, do well to share, like, subscribe, and also share to your network. Hopefully, someone in your network will greatly adore this video. Thank you so much, Katrina.
Thank you, Ransom.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.